Righty, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Casey Catlin, and I work with the member outreach team here at the American Bankers Association. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We have a PowerPoint today for our presentation, which will be right around 20 minutes long. The fun part about this presentation is it's going to essentially be walking through ABA's resources that your bank is already paying for. So this is something of a refresher for folks on the many benefits that come with ABA membership, how it can be beneficial to you, and everything I'll be covering today is entirely free. So I'd like to come on the video at the beginning of the presentation, just to introduce myself, but I'll go ahead and hop off until the end, and that way we can focus on my slides, and then I'll share my screen eventually as well. So with that, let's go ahead and dive on in. It is important to note that the ABA is an organizational membership of banks from across the United States. We represent banks ranging from some of the smallest community banks all the way up to some of the largest banks here in the US. And we reach out to bankers time and time again to really get their pulse on what are the issues that are most important to them and why do they continue to come back to ABA? What resources that we're providing are most beneficial to bankers? And survey data tells us time and time again that bankers come to us for 5 items in particular: advocacy, issue expertise, banking topics, professional development, and what I like to call what's in it for me, items that directly make someone's job a little bit easier throughout the day. Who we represent as an organization: 95% of ABA member banks are community banks. Median asset size about 351 million, and our board reflective of the diversity in our membership, about 2/3 of our board community bankers, mid-sized banks representing about 1/3, and then we have a large bank representative as well. Advocacy. This is a big part of what we do here at ABA. We are at our core an advocacy organization, and we are a nonpartisan organization as well. That means that we work with both Republicans and Democrats to advance the interests of the banking industry. That way, regardless of which party is in Congress or controlling the White House or whatever it might be, we are well positioned to represent the interests of bankers. And while we have a great team of lobbyists here at ABA that work hard on your behalf, we also are firm believers that advocacy is everyone's job. For that reason, we make it easy for folks to come to Washington, D.C. to meet with their elected officials. We encourage folks doing that through their state association, and lots and lots of great ways to meet with your House delegation, with the senators representing your state. As a matter of fact, just next week, we will have our Washington Summit Conference. That's a free conference for bankers where they can come and meet with their elected officials, and then we have some scheduled programming as well. Now, when it comes to our advocacy priorities at ABA, we are not determining these on our own, like kings and queens or something of that nature. Instead, we are actually going to bankers through our committees, councils, and working groups to get an idea of really what matters most to them and what we need to be prioritizing in the legislative space on Capitol Hill and otherwise. And we have committees for a lot more than just advocacy. As a matter of fact, we have committees for all sorts of different topics. Here is a small sampling of those. Some of our notable committees. We have one for compliance, government relations, as I mentioned. We have another for community bankers. And these are just a sampling of almost 100 different committees that we have here at ABA. And I really like to describe committees as being a win-win for both the banker and ABA alike. On the one hand, we receive the much needed feedback that really is so imperative to help us represent your interests, but simultaneously, you, the banker, are given that voice at the table to represent your bank on the issues that matter most to you. And that is something we see as being enormously valuable for folks. Experts on call. This is a big benefit that we offer here at ABA. And experts on call is where we make about 100 of our staff experts available to bankers anytime throughout the work week to field their questions. So maybe you are confused about how a new regulation is impacting your bank, or perhaps you're curious about artificial intelligence and all that means for the industry and for the workforce right now. Whatever question you might have, I encourage you to reach out to our staff experts. It's a free benefit included in your membership, and you can get in touch with our experts in a few different ways. You can go to our database online, which will include the direct contact information for each of our staff experts. You can dial the compliance hotline. if you have a compliance specific question, or maybe you aren't sure who you need to speak to. You can simply dial 1-800-BANKERS and we'll get you connected with the right person. So Experts on Call, great resource when you have what I would describe as one-on-one questions for folks. But similarly to Experts on Call, we also have a program called the Speakers Bureau here at ABA. And that's where we actually make a number of our staff experts available to connect with bankers in a group setting, right? Maybe your bank board of directors would benefit from hearing from one of our staff experts. Maybe an all staff meeting at your bank is curious about learning more about cybersecurity or fraud. Maybe your compliance team would like a regulatory update of what to expect from Washington for the remainder of this year. You name it, we probably have a speaker for it. And again, no speaker fee here. This is a resource that is included in your bank's membership, which I see as being just enormously valuable for folks. And it's something banks are taking advantage of. Since we launched the Speakers Bureau, we have actually received over 450 requests. So this is a resource that banks are using. Job role support. So at ABA, we have job-specific resource centers on our website, aba.com, that are actually tailored to individual roles at the bank. For example, if you are a compliance professional, we have a job role support page for you. If you are a bank marketer, maybe you're working in risk management, HR, operations. I like to describe these again as something of a one-stop shop for all your needs and resources. An example would be if you're a compliance professional, you would find items like existing acts and regulations, regulatory proposals, final rules, staff analyses, upcoming events, the number for the compliance hotline, information of that nature. Professional development. This is a big part of what we do here at ABA. I myself have worked at ABA for right around 5 years. And one constant that I've picked up in that time is that bankers really are an industry of lifelong learners, right? That's something that we always hammer home. And that's something that we have really reflected in our resources as well. So a sampling of our professional development, certificates and certifications we offer a significant number of. These are not free, but are discounted for ABA members. Schools, we have about a half dozen schools that offer classroom-oriented environment for folks. Again, these are tailored to individual roles at the bank. Webinars. You, of course, run a member benefits webinar right now, but our staff experts also host webinars on a near bi-weekly basis, I would say, as well. So lots of really good opportunities for the lifelong learners, which as I said, it seems to be most bankers that I meet. But our most valuable resource as it relates to professional development is going to be our frontline compliance trainings, right? So these are free trainings. We just remodeled these, refurbished these here within the last few months. Free for ABA members. All of these trainings cover key federal regulations, and these are tailored to different roles at the bank. Despite the name having compliance in it, it's relevant to folks really across the bank. Courses take an average of 30 minutes to complete. And what I really like about this program as well is the reporting is quite robust, both for managers at the bank and also for regulators as well. So this is a resource that's used by over 1,600 banks, one that is really valuable. And I always encourage folks, especially when you're onboarding a new employee, this is a great place to start, is our frontline compliance trainings. Washington Summit, I mentioned coming up here next week, March 18th to 20th. Registration is free for every banker for this event. So we definitely encourage folks to come up here, and it's a great opportunity to meet with your elected officials and really speak to the issues that are affecting your bank and your customers. We see that as being just enormously valuable. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you our website, aba.com, and just go ahead and walk through a few of those resources in real time. All right, so give me one moment here. And let's see if the screen share will be successful for me. Right now it doesn't want to be, but give me just one moment. And there we go. Everybody should hopefully be able now to see my screen, which is our website, aba.com. I'm logged in my staff account right here. As you can see, it says, hello, Casey Catlin. But everything I'm about to show you through my staff account on aba.com, you would also have access to as well through, excuse me, through your individual bank membership. So if you go to the membership page here, this is a great place to start. If you go to the members get started page, let's say you're brand new to ABA, maybe you're brand new to banking altogether. The members get started page includes a member checklist. What I really like about this is you can actually go through here and select your job role at your bank. Let's say you work in risk management and fraud. And it will then show you not just 5 easy ways to get started with us here at ABA, but also some of the different resources that you can immediately utilize as a risk management professional. I'll apply it again here for, let's say, marketing and comms. And again, it will show you these resources in real time. So lots of good stuff here that I encourage folks to take full advantage of, especially if you're new with us and just kind of figuring out how to engage. Advocacy, I mentioned earlier, a really big part of what we do here at ABA. And if you go to this advocacy overview, you can see some of the issues that we're engaging in, what we stand for. You can also see different ways to engage through the political engagement tools that we offer through the State Association Alliance. But looking at a sampling of our issues that we're engaged in the advocacy space, you can see here we've got about 24 of these. And these are essentially nonpartisan by nature. A lot of these are also really industry uniters, regardless of where your bank is or how big your bank is. Topics like cannabis banking, credit union competition, de novo banks, fintech policy, Volcker, all sorts of stuff here that our advocacy team is working hard on, and the alliance with state associations to make sure bankers are represented. If you go to our news and research page here, you can see some additional information. I like this page. It is going to be updated not just every day, but really every hour with new pieces of information. I find that to be quite valuable. You can see here analyses and guides, email bulletin subscriptions. You can sign up for these as you see fit. It'll keep you up to speed on trends in the industry. What I like about this page is you can actually see some of the individual tools that are really, or the individual bulletins, sorry, that are tailored to specific roles at the bank. Our goal at ABA is not to be that company that's, blowing up your inbox with unnecessary information. But instead, you can, really maximize some of these bits of information. Some will come on a weekly basis, others on a quarterly basis. But something that I like, you can sort of tailor the information that you want to be receiving. I think that's the way it should be structured, right? So back to that news and research page, you can see here we've got podcasts. If you're a podcast person like myself, these are a lot of fun. We'll bring in industry leaders and our staff experts for different conversations on those. And the library there goes back a full 3 or 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. And then also our publications here at ABA. We have the Banking Journal, that's our flagship magazine. And then we also have some publications tailored specifically to bank directors, as well as compliance and risk professionals, and then bank marketing professionals to boot. So lots of good stuff here on this news and research page. And again, new articles, news bites, bits of information released on a regular basis here, usually by the hour. All right, let's go over to experts and peers. If I lost you at some point along the way, I'd ask you to come back to me now, as I think a lot of the information here folks find to be especially helpful. Experts on call. I mentioned earlier, this is where you can go and contact our experts directly. What I like about this is you can actually select an individual banking topic. So compliance, for example, you apply that filter, and it will show you my colleagues that are experts in compliance and can assist you in this area, right? So as you can see, our individual experts, not just their areas of expertise, but their direct email, direct phone line. This is not a situation where you're calling us and waiting on a hold for hours on end. These folks are directly accessible to you. Choosing another example for good measure, let's go with, how about fintech or innovation? That comes up all the time these days. Apply that filter. It will show you my 4 colleagues that are experts in the innovation and fintech arena. So lots of good stuff here that I encourage folks to take advantage of through experts on call. I also mentioned the Speakers Bureau. This is when you want to bring in someone to speak to a group of folks at your bank. You can see here we've got right around 70 of my colleagues. What I really like about the Speakers Bureau page is that you can actually see when you click here the direct biographies of our staff experts. So you can see, that they are experts in a given area, but also what makes them experts, their background, their pedigree. When you bring in someone to speak to your bank, I think that's an important thing to have, right? Is that firm idea of what makes someone well suited to speak. Ed Elfman, another one of our popular staff experts, covering agriculture banking. As a matter of fact, we'll actually have a webinar on ag banking, free for ABA members, coming up on Thursday with Ed as the star of that show. Similarly, over on the experts and peers side of the house, a few more items to highlight. Online discussion groups. It's a great place to connect with other bankers and share best practices. I talk a whole lot about ABA being most beneficial through the resources that you are receiving through ABA, but it also gives you access to a network that I find to be really helpful for folks as they are sharing best practices with one another and really sort of having that industry camaraderie, so to speak. Committees, councils, and working groups I mentioned earlier, really a driver of our strategy organizationally here at ABA, and a great opportunity for you, the banker, to be representative of your bank and the issues that matter most to you. And if you explore our committees here, you can see we have no shortage of committees, councils, and working groups. Some of these are going to be by appointment only. Others you can join openly, but lots of good stuff. Trainings and events. A few items to highlight here. This is our broader professional development resources. You can see a full calendar of training and events, a list of our conferences, but where we've invested most is our online trainings. And this is where you'll see certificates, self-paced trainings, webinars, which are both live and recorded. Those are recorded back a full 3-4 years as well, free for ABA members. Facilitated trainings, short trainings, but the real highlight here is ABA's frontline compliance training. I mentioned earlier 125 key courses that are touching on federal regulations. You can see here how to enroll your bank. You could also look at a course list. And again, these are 30 minutes long. Reporting is really available through these as well when it comes to regulators or management at your bank, but lots and lots of good stuff there under the professional development umbrella of trainings and events. Next up, we have our job role support centers, or our banking topics, as I like to call them. And here you can see we have tailored individual roles at the bank: compliance, risk management, consumer banking, commercial banking, wealth management. So let's look at the compliance job role support page, for example. Here you would see how you could call the compliance hotline. If you have questions about compliance and you don't have a particular staff expert in mind, you can look at FAQs from that hotline. But in addition to that, you can see we have here acts and regulations, a full list of those, regulatory proposals, final rules, staff analyses, the enforcement action database, news in the compliance space, upcoming events and webinars, references and guides, committees tied to compliance, all sorts of good stuff there. Picking on another example, let's go with marketing and comms. And you can see here, again, news in that space. You can see our 2024 communications guide, which offers road-tested talking points on all sorts of issues that matter to bankers and matter to the customers of those banks as well. Related trainings and events, different ABA resources specifically for comms professionals, but all sorts of good stuff that lives on these pages and on ABA.com, broadly speaking. So I would encourage you to go to our website and poke around and explore some of these resources on your own that I've pointed out today. I think you'll find them to be quite valuable. Next up, here is a summary of free benefits that we offer here at ABA. Folks always ask if they can take a picture of this slide, to which I say you're more than welcome to do so. But if you would simply like a copy of the presentation deck, I'm also happy to send that over at any time. I'll have my email up on the screen here in just a moment for any folks that might want that. The member checklist. I showed you that a few moments ago, but again, I encourage you to go and start there. Again, aba.com/members get started is where you would go to access the member checklist and all the resources that accompany that. We will now wrap up with a picture of my smiling face featuring my favorite tie from 2 Christmases ago. But that's not what's important. What is important is my direct contact information here. That's my email, my phone line. I always encourage folks to reach out to me anytime that I can be helpful or resourceful. Again, my direct email, my phone line. If anybody would like a copy of the presentation deck that I used today, feel free to email me directly, ccatlin@aba.com. I'm happy to send that over to you. If anybody's interested in really any of the resources that I talked about on the whole today, please feel free to contact me. If you have any questions and you want to put those in the chat now, you are also more than welcome to do so. Don't see any questions coming in. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap about 5 minutes early today. But I encourage folks to lean on me where I can be a resource. And until then, really appreciate you all taking the time to join me this afternoon, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks so much.